Good evening, hockey fans, and welcome to Pod Snipe Celly, episode 2. Joel, I feel like we're officially a podcast now. We made it to episode 2. That's part of what we had to do to get here was make sure we had at least 2 episodes. So we're off and running.
Yeah, you're pretty successful if you get past the pilot episode, right? So
Absolutely. They picked us up for a full season, so we'll take it and we'll see what happens from there. If you're just joining us, this is your first time tuning in. Welcome to the show. My name is Dan Bradley. Alongside me is Joel Fernino. Joel, how's your week going, buddy?
outside of the hockey world, actually, you know what? Outside of the sports world, very good. How about you?
Your Bears had a little bit of a rough go of things this weekend.
Aaron Rodgers owns us, and I will fully admit that. Anyway.
Yeah, it was not a great weekend for the Bears. Not a great week for your Hawks either. We'll get to that later in the show. But the biggest news, hockey is back. What a great time of year. I feel like sports fans kind of get the best of everything in October and into November because you've got college football, you've got the NFL, you've got hockey, you've got the end of the baseball season, moving through the postseason there, basketball
Which
coming
has
back.
been nuts.
It's in my mind, I think it's the best time of year on the sports calendar is late October into November and then May into June-ish, right around when things are picking back up.
Yep.
So with the return of hockey, I want to ask you right off the bat, what has surprised you the most early in this hockey season?
My Stanley Cup pick in the East, the Tampa Bay Lightning, looking like a subpar at best team.
Yeah, Tampa Bay off to a rough start, dropping the banner-raising night opening game. Lost, what was it, 5-3, 6-3, something like that?
No, I think it was 6-2, actually, I believe.
6-2.
Granted, 3 of them were empty netters.
Against the Pittsburgh Penguins team that did not have Sidney Crosby, did not have Evgeny Malkin, did not have Jake Gensel. That's a game that Tampa Bay should be just rolling through, right?
Yep, exactly. I didn't expect them to slaughter them, but I definitely expected probably those scores to be reversed.
I know in the betting preview that I wrote for that game, I said Tampa Bay by at least 2, Tampa Bay on the puck line, so Tampa minus 1.5, and that was just one of the worst hockey picks I've made in a long time. That blew up in my face.
Vasilevsky looked human.
He did. I think I wonder if just because of how much he's played over the last couple of years that it's just starting to kind of wear on him a bit. I wonder if he's got something lingering. Now today we see Kucherov is hurt again. They think it might be a long-term deal.
That dude just can't stay healthy.
You can maybe start up now that they've got the cap room for it with Kucherov on IR again. Jack Eichel, the Tampa Bay rumors, those can start going again.
I don't see how they would afford that, regardless of the long-term IR, but we can get into that.
I don't know, but either way, that's kind of one of the big surprises. New Jersey Devils winning their opener, Dougie Hamilton scoring in the first minute with his new team. I'm sorry, I had to bring it up.
It's been a little bit of a grind for the entire road trip to start our season. But yes, the Devils did look, I will admit, I definitely sat there and was like, okay, like we got, blown out of the water in our season opener by the Avalanche. And actually we made it close, but at the same time, I was like, it's the Avalanche. They're the Stanley Cup favorite. I'm not going to put too much weight on this. I was texting you during the game saying the exact same thing. And then I underestimated the Devils and was like, this has to be a win. This has to be an easy 1-1 right here. It's done. Nope. They surprised me. They looked I guess that's another surprise. They look solid.
Staying in the Eastern Conference, I think another big surprise is seeing the New York Islanders 0-2 out of the gate. 6-3 loss to Carolina, 5-1 loss to the Florida Panthers. My pick to win the Cup this year was the Panthers. Islanders, the semifinal runner-up the last couple of years. They lost to Montreal last year and to Tampa Bay right before that. Oh, boy. You're not going to like this one. Aaron Rodgers owns the Bears. Jack Hughes owns the Hawks. I think it's a little early to say Jack Hughes owns the Hawks. That's the second time, maybe third, they've ever played?
Yeah, and listen, Jack Hughes is going to have a breakout season. We all saw it coming, but that overtime winner, I'm not going to get too far into it. All I'm going to say is that Lankinen is still learning. He's still young. Any veteran goalie would not have come out that far. That's all I'm going to say.
That's kind of fair. I think especially in the 3-on-3, that's way too far out of your net to be playing on that one. But he had to take a risk a little bit coming on the 2-on-1 rush like that. But put that celebration in the Hall of Fame. I am here for launching sticks into the crowd on goal celebrations. Give it to someone
I
who's
thought
going to
it was
love it and
great.
appreciate it. Find a kid in the crowd, point to them, get
And
them the
just launch it.
stick. A plus, Celly. Absolutely love that.
If that Celly is not added into the current NHL game that just came out in the coming months, I will be very disappointed.
Might not be added to this one, but I'd bet it would for sure be in by the next one.
That's
It's
fair.
just got to be. Moving on, I want to talk about the Seattle Kraken here. Kraken are off to a
Yes.
1-1-1 start to the year. Release the Kraken, losing in close fashion to the Vegas Golden Knights
Yeah.
in their opening game. They've battled back to get their record to 1-1-1. Joel, what have you seen from Seattle so far? What stood out to you?
That home, or not home opener, but that season opener against Vegas, I didn't get a chance to watch their other two games too much. I did see the highlights of their win, but if anything, their loss to Vegas I think impressed me the most. Like, sure, they lost, they don't want to do that, but they came out of the gate swinging. Like they showed, and I'm not going to say I underestimated them. I didn't think they were going to be as good as Vegas was coming into the league, and I still don't know if it's going to be that, but they came out swinging. I mean, Giordano looks as good as ever. I think I don't think he needed to be rejuvenated, but it's like he is. He's got this shot of adrenaline going to a new team and everything there. And I mean, not to mention, I can't remember his first name, but Geeky, right?
Morgan Geeky.
Morgan
Yep.
Geeky. That kid can shoot. Like,
Yeah, Geeky looks good.
my God. Like that was probably one of the first waiver wire pickups I started thinking about in fantasy hockey was this Morgan Geeky kid.
Yeah, he can play. They got a bunch of guys who really analytically, that was kind of their approach, was looking at some of the advanced stats and the metrics that don't necessarily show up on a score sheet. How well are you controlling the play entering the zone? How many shots does your team get when you're on the ice? Some of the more advanced stats like that. And all of these guys, it's just a very analytics driven team. And I think we're starting to see that as well with guys like Geeky coming through.
Yeah. Like he's basically, to me, Geeky could be, this might be early, I get it. We're 3 games into their season. He could be the Kraken's William Karlsson. What William Karlsson did for the Golden Knights.
He could be. There was a lot of talk about that, and there was a lot of talk about McCann being in that role as well.
Yep.
Getting those first line minutes while Yanni Gord is still out, playing alongside Jordan Eberle on his wing. That's a line that could put up some serious points.
Yeah, Jordan Eberle fell under the radar for me. I kept forgetting he was. I kept seeing Eberle skate up and down. I'm like, oh right, they grabbed Eberle too.
They were buzzing. There was so much energy with that team. I mean, it looked like that was a team that was 82 games in, playing for a playoff spot. It had that kind of intensity to it.
Exactly. You could not, to anyone who doesn't exactly watch hockey that much, you could not have shown them that game and been like, this is their first game in their franchise history. Like this is their first time ever playing together as a team. Like it was ridiculous. They kept fighting, they kept battling, and yes, I get it. Vegas ultimately won off of a very, some would say, controversial goal.
Oh, that was 100% a kick.
And I was like, all right, that's like 92% a kicking motion. I can see the arguments from certain angles where it could be argued the other way around. I was sitting there where I was like, that's got to be a kick. Like this is a tie game. We're going to overtime or not.
To me, it's him extending his knee is what to me was the kick on it. And if you're trying to stop while you're skating, you're starting to bend your knee a little bit. You're kind of jerking down, and that kind of wasn't the motion for me. It was the extension that to me was the kick.
Yeah.
But Seattle officially a member of the league now because, hey, you lost a game because of a questionable call. So welcome to the league, guys.
You were victimized by the refs. Welcome to the show.
Get it right out of the way in the first game. Much better now than later in the season. But welcome to the league, Kraken. I am excited to see what that team can do this year. I think they could finish, for me, I think at least third in that Pacific Division. Where do you have Seattle finishing?
it's a good point because the Pacific Division is just so weak.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'm going to put them all the way up at third. I think they're a team, and they showed me in those first 3 games they will battle till the very end. They have something to prove. They have one hell of a chip on their shoulder. So I would probably put them. I could see them hitting that first wild card spot, not the one where it's like, oh, there's a chance they're going to miss. Like I think they'll be pretty solidly in that first wild card spot without that second wild card really touching them too much.
Who do you have finishing ahead for getting to the top 3 in the Pacific then?
In the Pacific, so the easy winner in the Pacific is obviously, to me, I think it's Edmonton.
Edmonton or Vegas?
I'm going to say Edmonton because as great as Vegas is, and Vegas is going to be back in the conversation again. They're going to be. I still have them going to the Western Conference Final. Potentially, if they can beat the Avalanche, but well, no, that's who they would play.
That's who they would play. Yeah,
that's who they play. So that's what my matchup is. But just seeing what they did with the Kraken, and not to take anything away from the Kraken, obviously we're seeing they're going to be a good team. They're going to come out hard every night, but I just think there's still those occurrences with Vegas where it's like they have trouble finishing a game. They come out hard.
Mhm.
They are so solid defensively, offensively, goaltending. Robin Leonard is going to be good again. He's not going to be a Vezina finalist or anything, but he's going to be good. And there's just always that little. It's almost like they dial it back, even if it's only for half a period. It's enough to get that team to come back, whoever they're playing. Good team, bad team, whoever it is. And I think that's also why you've seen them not be able to finally win the big one. Could they do it this year? Yeah, absolutely. But to the start of the season so far, they show me that I think Edmonton can go off, take that division, but then also probably pull a choke like they usually do.
Well, one thing that works in Edmonton's favor is that Stone and Pacioretty are going to be out for a little while. So Vegas is going to need some guys to step up, and
That's
that
huge.
could be a spot where Edmonton really kind of foot on the gas out of the gate. You see Connor McDavid picking up a hat trick against Calgary the other night. He's got 5 points in 2 games already. McDavid's the best player in the league, right? Do you have an argument for anybody else other than McDavid is the best in the league right now?
Absolutely not. There is no one that can
no
touch him.
McKinnon, no Crosby, no Ovechkin.
Crosby has fallen off. My boy Kane has started to fall off. Who did you just mention? Oh, McKinnon. I mean, McKinnon is probably the only one that you can come near me with an argument. But even then, it's clearly McDavid. And even when we're talking about, the clear-cut number 1 is McDavid, number 2, 3, and 4 are basically a battle, and one of those spots of 2, 3, and 4 are his line mate.
Right, Leon Draisaitl being right up there as well, and having that kind of talent that you can be playing with. It's just incredible. McDavid is so fun to watch.
Oh, I know. He's like the one person where, like, if they're going to come to Chicago and I'm going to go to a game and he lights us up, cool. I'm not leaving mad. I watched one hell of a show then at that point. That's fine.
Folks, we want to remind you, if you have any questions for us throughout the show, questions, comments, hot takes, whatever you got, we welcome all of that. Drop a comment in whatever platform you're watching on. We've got this going on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter right now. Just let us know. We'd be happy to put it up. We'll put it up on the screen. If you don't want it on screen, but you want it read, you can make that comment anyway, as well. But we'll put it up with discretion.
Of course.
But we definitely want to hear from you guys throughout the show. Whatever your thoughts are on the season so far, we definitely want to be sure to share that. Go ahead, Joel.
I was going to say, to answer your question, because it was a very long-winded answer of who would finish ahead of them, I still think the Canucks get their stuff together and they finish.
You do?
Yep.
Okay.
Right now they're in. They're up there. I think they get their stuff together. I think they could probably hit that 3 seed.
I'm a little worried about Vancouver's defensive play. I
agree.
Quinn Hughes, good offensive defenseman, little sketchy in the back end, maybe. But I would have to really sit and think about who's playing there. Nate Schmidt got traded. He's out.
Yeah.
But would have to think about who's playing defense for Vancouver right now. Of course, if you can score 6, 7, 8 goals a night with the forward group that they have, might not be an issue in the long run. But I don't know. I don't see Vancouver getting certainly not ahead of Vegas or Edmonton. I don't see how they
No.
get ahead of Seattle either, though. I think Seattle
Yeah.
is, for me, Seattle's the better team.
I would agree, plus that chip on that shoulder. So
Mhm.
I honestly, even though it's my own take, I'm probably going to be wrong because Seattle just has that much of a chip on their shoulder that it's like, I think it's going to be one hell of a fist fight up until the very end, and we'll see who takes it.
I was really impressed with the LA Kings.
Yeah, I don't know how they have one win. That's interesting.
Well, they have a loaded prospect pool, and even with Quentin Byfield out, they've got so much talent coming through the pipeline. Plus, they just picked up Deno, they picked up Arvidsson. These are going to be players who are going to be a factor on this team for quite a few years, I would think. Plus, with all these young guys coming in, do you think LA maybe cracks in and gets a playoff spot?
I was thinking about it. I was kind of looking at the standings, and I saw some of the highlights of how they played. Maybe, right?
Mhm.
Maybe because obviously, the what I thought the Central was going to be doesn't look to be. So, I mean, yeah, I could definitely see the Kings cracking
Well,
in there.
I do seem to recall last week that you said that your dark horse team to make the playoffs
One
was
of
the
them.
Chicago
One of
Blackhawks, and
them.
that's actually where I want to go next with a little bit of home cooking. Takes on our hometown teams. Joel, you've got the Blackhawks jersey on tonight. You've got the captain
He's back.
representing. He's back.
He's back.
Give me. I'm going to just give you some time to just let it all out. Chicago not off to a great start to the season. Joel, what's going wrong with Chicago?
Jeremy Colleton. That's one. No, but I will get into that. So I think myself included, I think we put a little bit too high expectations on them. I still have high hopes. I do. I still have hopes that they can figure this out, squeeze into that one or two wild card spot. Remember how I said, don't come to me when they might take that three. I don't think that's going to happen. That three spot is not going to be taken by them. If it is, cool. I'm glad to eat my own words about my own team. But I mean, their defensive play is atrocious. It's absolutely horrible. They're playing their own end, and yes, Seth Jones to start out against Colorado looked
Brutal.
awful. He was a liability if I've ever seen one. He was Chris Campoli level liability that night.
Wow,
Yes, yes, I
that's
said that.
a
I said it.
heavy-handed statement.
He was. And I'm excited for the kid. I think he's gonna get it together. He's already shown he's getting it together. He had a great next game that was not on him. It was on probably Jake McCabe, he's a whatever player. I mean, whatever. He's a veteran defenseman. Fine, whatever. It's cool to have him. Yippee. This system is not working. the only part of this system that works is the power play. Our power play, and also of the, I think it's what, 2 5-on-5 goals that we have so far through 3 games in the season. Like, obviously our power play is the only way we can score, but we still don't score that much. The power play is the only thing that this system has produced that actually showed me, oh, okay, like Colleton has something going there, right? It's fine. Jeremy Colleton has had his chances. He started halfway through when they fired Q.
Mhm,
So I'll give them a wash that season. Their goals against the Blackhawks goals against that season was nearing 300. It was 292.
mhm.
That's horrendous, and that was the worst it had been in since before Kane and Taves were even drafted.
Well, not only that, but then on the back end defensively, Keith, Seabrook, Letty,
Exactly.
Helmerson, that was a stat. That's how Chicago was winning their cups, was the depth that they had in the forward group, but unbelievable team defense.
You forget some of the dark horses there too. Brent Sopel, Nick Boynton, they were
Mhm,
huge. But anyway, he's had his chances. He had a full season. Granted, COVID struck towards the end of his kind of full, what was supposed to be his full 82 game, his first full 82 game season.
mhm.
People gave him the benefit of the doubt. I was kind of one of them a little bit, but still, we cracked into the quote unquote playoffs, right? Like
Right.
And
They expanded 24-team field instead of the usual
right.
16.
We win a series against Edmonton and then get completely smacked by the Golden Knights. And that's fine. That was expected. Then you move to last season. I get it. Last season, shortened season, but horrible. And now to start this season, like the system does not work. Colleton is not the answer, but he's the yes man that Stan Bowman wants. Now, Stan Bowman gets benefit of the doubt because he's got 3 cups under his belt, 2 directly under him, and then the 2010 one, he was involved in a way. He wasn't promoted yet, though. So I don't know. To wrap this up so you can talk about your first place Wild.
Yeah, buddy.
We started off horrible. I'm going to the home opener tomorrow against the Islanders, who are also struggling. So hopefully we can get it together. Sounds like Kane and Taves, the 2 big leaders in the room, still are buying into Colleton's system. So I'll give a little sliver of a chance for the next maybe, I'm going to give it another like 5, 6, 7 games. First 3 games looked awful. We tied it up, went into overtime, all that good stuff, but it just does not look good. And I just don't want us to blow it all up and sell off Taves and Kane. But if that happened, I don't know if I'd be surprised.
Let me ask you this. If they were to get rid of Colleton, who would you replace him with? You would think somebody maybe within the system.
Nope.
Maybe Rockford's coach gets called up. You're during the season anyway while you're doing a coach search.
Okay.
For now, for short term, but long term, who do you think if Colleton goes and this is his last year? Who would you want to see take over if Colleton is out?
I'd have to look and see who's available. There was one name floating around that I would be willing to entertain, and that was Claude Julien.
Okay.
He's still out of the league, and I think that name floated around. There was one other name, I don't remember who it was.
Right. Well, Julien was with Boston, and then was with Montreal for a while. Montreal fired him during the season last year, and then Montreal goes on the run to the Cup Finals. But Julien has built some pretty good teams through the years, and especially defensively. You look at the teams that he's coached; they're good defensive teams.
Exactly.
That would be a good, maybe not a great fit, but at least it would address a big team need.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And again, I can, when you're going to talk about the Wild, I'll look. I can't remember. There were a couple other people that were out there. We'd have to do a search. I've seen John Tortorella's name thrown out there, but I don't think he's the answer.
Give me Torts.
That would be awesome. I love Torts to death, but I don't think he's the answer.
Torts.
Now, to be fair, he knows how to light a fire under some asses. I still don't think he's the answer, though, long term at least.
I don't know that Tortorella's coaching style necessarily works with today's game. I look at how a team like Columbus, they're undefeated to start the year, 2-0 under Brad Larson, and immediately you're looking at guys who kind of struggled a bit under Tortorella's systems that are now playing better under Brad Larson. Exactly. Patrick Laine comes to mind, rock star entrance shit the other night. Did you see that? He was just decked out. He's got the goggles on and everything, just rocking it up.
I saw a meme. He was like, "Why is he coming in here looking like young David Bowie?"
A little bit.
He's like, "All right."
Yeah, that was just incredible. Give me more players showing that kind of personality on their outfits walking into the game. You see it in other leagues too. The NBA does it. The NFL does it. Who's got the best suit game? Who's got the best whatever they're wearing? Yep. And kind of started in the NHL with PK Subban to an extent. But as teams are starting to relax their dress codes now, I think the only team that said that they're not relaxing their dress code at some point this year is the New York Islanders. But everyone else has kind of said, you know what, we're going to relax it at some point. Let the players have some personality. I would absolutely love to see that.
Oh, absolutely! I love the suit game. I love the costumes. There's so many different things that pop up. But talk to me about your Minnesota Wild. First place in the Central, 3 games in. Well, mostly 3 games in. Hey.
Yep, they got their third game tomorrow night. I'm trying to temper my expectations on this team a little bit. And the reason for that is because their first 2 opponents were the Anaheim Ducks and the LA Kings. Neither of those teams was a playoff team last year.
The Ducks gave you a run for your money, though.
Ducks did give us a run for the money. That was really concerning, honestly. And not only that, but it wasn't even John Gibson in net, but it was Anthony Stolars who was in net when the Wild played.
Right.
And they put 39 shots on him before they got a second puck into the back of the net. Marcus Foligno scores with, I think, like 7 seconds left in the game. And off the opening faceoff, Anaheim runs a set play and gets a really good scoring chance out of it. Darn near ties the game. That kind of worried me a little bit. Other thing I've seen from the Wild so far is it's been the depth players scoring. So the other night against LA, it was Frederick Gaudreau, it was Victor Rask, and it was Ryan Hartman. Now Hartman,
Your boy, Victor Rask.
former Chicago Blackhawk, Ryan Hartman.
Chicagoan as well.
I loved that pickup. I was through the roof excited when the Wild picked up Ryan Hartman.
I told you we're going to love him.
Really starting to kind of come into his own as a player in this league, as a reliable middle six forward, good center. And I really like having him on a line with Kevin Fiala. I think those two have some chemistry. Fiala scored in the first game.
Yep.
Victor Rask scored in the second. Every time I criticize Victor Rask in some way, shape, or form, whether it's on a podcast like this, whether it's on social media, immediately, like within the same game, if I'm tweeting about him during a game going, how did you miss that puck? How did you miss that check? What are you looking at on that turnover? He'll immediately park himself in front of the net, and Kirill Kaprizov will wheel through the zone for 30 seconds and find him on the back door and score a goal. It is uncanny how often Victor Rask scoring goals in this economy. HP says, HP, thanks for joining us, my man. That's so spot on. Victor Rask goals are just, he gets the benefit of being on a line with Kirill Kaprizov. And when things weren't working the other night and we're going kind of slow, they reunited the Rask, Kaprizov, and Zuccarello line.
Yeah.
And it worked, and Rask just gets to the front of the net and finds a goal. The Wild are going to be even better once Joel Eriksson Ek starts scoring goals, once Kirill Kaprizov starts scoring goals. He's got a couple of assists so far already this year, but no goals yet. Fiala getting Greenway going. Greenway might be in trouble. Duhaime coming up through the system is kind of taking on that same sort of role that they were expecting Greenway to have. This might be Greenway's last year in Minnesota if he doesn't kind of get things going here.
Tell me where you think they finish at the end of the year. I want to hear yours.
In my power rankings today, had the Wild 6th in the league. You can go check that out. That's on noobsports.com under the hockey section. I think
this man's
realistically, I think this Wild team finishes second or third in the division.
All right.
I think Colorado, as soon as Colorado gets Landeskog back from suspension, they get McKinnon back from COVID-19 protocol, they're going to take off. The Avs are just too good a team. If the Avalanche stay healthy, there's no reason that they shouldn't be in the Cup final. They have that much talent on their roster.
At this point, if they don't win the Cup, they shot themselves in the foot. No one beat them. They beat themselves. They are too good to be beaten by anyone, in my humble opinion.
I don't know. I think there's a couple teams that can really give them a run for the money. Tampa Bay, depending what they do, especially when they get Kucherov back, if he's going to be out long-term and they can bring somebody in, use that long-term IR loophole and kind of exploit that a little bit and get a $100 million cap hit team for $80 million. I think that's a very real possibility. I think Florida has a chance, a healthy Vegas team. We saw last postseason how Vegas's style of play is such a perfect counter to Colorado. It was the physicality of the game. It was the slow the pace down, don't let the Avalanche control the puck, play incredible defense, wear them down, and then score on a counterattack. That's how you beat Colorado.
Once upon a time, though, the Anaheim Ducks tried to do that to a 2015 Blackhawks team, and it didn't work.
Well,
so if Colorado can not take from us, but if Colorado
in fairness to that Ducks team, and I hope my buddy Tim isn't watching because he'll get mad at me for saying this. Vegas last year, Vegas this year is better than that 2015 Ducks team. I'm sorry, it's they're just a better team.
It's fair.
So back to your question about where the Wild finish. I think the Wild probably do get second, maybe third. St. Louis, I don't know what to make of that team. St. Louis could finish second in the division. They could finish seventh in the division, and I honestly would not be surprised. I think St. Louis is kind of just so all over the place right now with kind of figuring out where are we at now. They're 2 years removed from their Stanley Cup win. They got swept in the first round of the playoffs last year. They're kind of in that, okay, where do we go next?
My face.
They're in that where do we go next stage. Dallas not looking promising out of the gate, and of course it's still early. They've got Ben Bishop is still on injured reserve. Jason Robertson is still he's on the injured list. Como's on the injured list. John Klingberg is on the injured list. They're all out right now. So it's kind of the same as last year for Dallas, is people are hurt. If they can get healthy, Dallas is a very, very good team.
Yeah.
But I don't see where they fit into the equation. Nashville is, I think they're going to be sellers at the trade deadline. I think this might be Philip Forsberg's last season in Nashville. He's in a contract year. I think Nashville trades him at the deadline, stockpiles a few draft picks. If Forsberg wants to come back, that's his business. But at the very least, swap him to a contender, get him playing for a team that's in the mix, get some picks coming back in, some prospects, kind of go that route. I don't see Nashville as a playoff team this year.
Maybe that's where Tampa go. Maybe Tampa makes a phone
maybe
call
so.
out to
that could
Nashville.
be a fit because they need a winger. So Arizona, they're a bottom 2 team in the league. Arizona is so bad.
Yeah.
They lost 2-1 in a shootout to Buffalo.
How about Buffalo though?
Buffalo's 2-0 to start the year.
I'm sitting here making predictions like I don't know, man. I don't even know if they break 15 wins this season. And
you were talking about
look at them
how
now.
Bad that team was going to be, and then what do? They shut us up and they go 2-0 in their first 2 games.
Good for them.
Good for them indeed.
Yeah.
So Wild, I think second, but I'm trying to kind of temper that a little bit. I think they'll get a good test in the Winnipeg Jets tomorrow night. Scheifele is back from his suspension. Winnipeg is winless to start the year too, and anytime Winnipeg and Minnesota play each other, that's kind of become what the early 2010s Wild Blackhawks type games were like, in terms of the everybody hit everybody, push the limits of the rule book a little bit in those types of games. It's a rivalry there. It's a really gritty series, and I think it's a good early season benchmark for the Wild would be win tomorrow night in your home opener, defend home ice, and beat Winnipeg. For me, that's kind of where I'm at with the Wild.
That's fair. I'm right there with you. I think that I could see him. I was going to surprise you. I'm like, I could see him finishing 2, maybe 3. I think they could make a push for 2. And then, then you got, I'm going to wait and see how the home opener for us goes tomorrow. If we can, take advantage of a struggling Islanders team in our home opener in front of the fans, maybe that's what lights a fire under their ass.
Well, let's take a look now at some early season hot seats. We kind of already touched on Colliton, so we won't go into that one here. Who else do you think is on the hot seat as a head coach early this season?
I want to hear your take first. You go first.
All right. Well, I think for me, Dallas Eakins in Anaheim is on the hot seat there. He's got some young stars coming up with Trevor Zegras, Jamie Drysdale, Mason McTavish. Anaheim is in need of some change, and it comes from their front office and GM Bob Murray. It comes from Dallas Eakins as the head coach. Eakins was brought in to be a coach that was going to relate to the younger players. And with guys struggling to develop like Sam Steele and Troy Terry, these guys who are supposed to be kind of the future of the Ducks, Max Jones as well. And Steele and Terry have been scratched from the lineup to begin the year. These were the guys that, Anaheim protected in the expansion draft. And rather than going, say, like a 4-4-1 type of route to protect Hayden Fleury, who, by the way, is starting in the lineup for the Kraken. He's, I think, their second pairing
Yeah.
defenseman with Seattle. And who's getting protected over him is Nick Delorier, who's on the fourth line, and Terry and Steele are getting scratched already. I mean, Anaheim really in need of just an organizational shakeup, not just from the coaching staff. And I think if Zegras and Drysdale and McTavish kind of struggle here over the first, say, 20 games, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the first one to go.
That's a good point. I agree. I think on my end, it's interesting. Obviously, we know my one answer is Jeremy Colliton. That's it. That's actually easy. And actually, I started doing some research on this earlier today. And if you just, all you need to do is type into Google NHL, hot seat, coaches on the hot seat. Jeremy Colliton is like the overall number one choice.
I think he's got to be with the expectations that Chicago has.
Yeah, and what we've seen so far, like if they decide to give him a chance, I'm not going to stay on this long. I want to mention if they stay on him long into the season and they don't fire him halfway through, and they completely miss the playoffs and it's not even close, he's gone. And quite frankly, I think what I've been seeing too is Dennis Savard was in a similar situation, except he got one season less than Colliton has been given. They were in a similar situation right before they hired Q and went on to do magnificent things. Colliton is kind of in a similar situation right now. They have similar records. They've had a slow start to the season where they potentially get fired. So he's definitely my main one on the hot seat. You knew that, but I have one other one. I can't. I won't go too far into it, other than for one reason. But Dave Tippett from the Oilers.
Ooh, okay.
Why is that? I would say right now his seat is lukewarm and slowly starting to come to a boil. Look at how good Edmonton is. Look at the talent they have. Look at what they've been able to do, but they haven't been able to get past the second round with all that talent and everything they have and the runs they continue to go on.
The talented forwards, sure, I can give you that. I'll give you McDavid, Draisaitl, Puljujarvi, Yamamoto, Nuge. I'll give you all those guys. But defensively, what do you have? You have the shell of Duncan Keith out there. He's not where he used to be. They traded away Ethan Bear, who was arguably their best. I would say second best defensive defenseman. Adam Larson, who was their best defensive defenseman, is gone to Seattle in the expansion draft. Darnell Nurse is still there. He's probably their number one defenseman right now.
He is.
Tyson Barrie, a good offensive defenseman, but again, not so much defensively. You need a team that can play defense. And you've got upcoming, I think he's 39. If not, he turns 39 later this season, Mike Smith in net for you. And you're telling me that in the prime years of McDavid and Draisaitl, you're going to give me Mike freaking Smith? Between the pipes, they didn't go out and get another goalie. They signed Smith to a 2-year extension. For me, that's not on the coaching staff. That's on the general manager. That's a change that needs to be made.
What you just said was my final point on it. I come from knowing that the head coach is the biggest scapegoat of everything you just said.
Yes, he is. But that doesn't tell me that he should be fired. I think if that's the case.
And I don't think he should be fired.
How do you fire right now? Edmonton's in first place in that division. How do you fire a coach on a first place team?
Hey, I'm with you. I know I'm coming from the perspective of we came from a Blackhawks team that decided to literally run away with the division in, I think it was 17-18, and then just have their regression in a series against Nashville and get swept in the first round.
Yeah, I completely disagree with you on this one. I don't think Tippett's on the hot seat at all.
I'm all about hot takes.
I think it would take Edmonton missing the playoffs this season with a healthy McDavid and Draisaitl for that to happen, and I don't see that happening.
I think a first round upset exit too could do it.
I don't know. I still think you have to look at the way the roster is built and decide that you can't rely on a 40-year-old Mike Smith to be winning you playoff games in the prime of McDavid and Draisaitl's careers.
You're absolutely right. No, you're absolutely right.
Sin.
No, you're absolutely right, and I agree with you, and I think that's why it pushes me even more towards that, because the coaches, as we see in like the NFL starting to, or the NHL starting to kind of get a little more like the NFL with their coaches, where it's like, oh well, you haven't won a championship or you haven't gone past the first or second round, you're out. No matter, and it's just a thing with the GMs, and I don't know. I've heard a lot of bad takes on Edmonton's ownership. I don't know if they make the right decision you start at the top. Today, in today's leagues, not just in the NHL, the top is never looked at first. Hell, they're barely looked at second, third, or fourth.
All right. Well, we got just a couple more segments here on the show tonight. I want to talk about the new TV deal and the changes that the NHL has made there, going from NBC to ESPN, ESPN Plus, and TNT have kind of really been carrying the markets. There's still some of the Bally Sports networks providing some of the local coverage, but at least for the national games, it's been on TNT and on ESPN. I think it's been a breath of fresh air from a broadcast standpoint. Joel, give me your take on it.
It has been phenomenal, and I have loved every second of it. I think, and obviously we've always had our shots that we take at ESPN for not knowing the NHL enough, not giving them enough credit. They've definitely gotten away from that in the last 5 or so years, I'd say. They've definitely started to get a little better over there. I think bringing in Barry Melrose helped that for sure. But I don't know, man. I went into their broadcast kind of thinking about that, right? Like how we always would, poo-poo on ESPN not doing the hockey thing as much.
Mm-hmm.
They killed it. Buchagras is fantastic. And that dude has passion for the game. Like I love his interviews on like Sports Center with SVP later, after that home, those two games. Like you're right. It's a breath of fresh air. It's so cool. The broadcasts were done so well. The actual production of it is really, done quite well. I personally love the shot clock or the shot speed tracker that they decide to toss up. That's so cool.
For me, the big win was TNT's graphics package and having a shot counter. Some of the local stations that do the games have done that, but that's not something that NBC has really had as a part of their graphics package for their hockey coverage. And maybe they'll put a bug up during the, if it's say like Chicago's out shooting Minnesota 10-2 in the second period or something like that. They would put up something like that, but no, having the actual shot counter up through the whole game, give me more of that. I think that was a huge plus. And the biggest one for me was bringing Charles Barkley into the booth. Watching Barkley and Gretzky, watching those two interact with each other, two legends in their respective sports, talking about hockey and the shootout. They give Gretzky 5 shots and they put Barkley in net and say, hey, try and stop it. Here's HP chiming in. Gretzky shooting pucks at Barkley between periods on TNT was awesome. I completely agree, HP. That was the most entertaining intermission report. And that's not to disrespect anything that NBC did, while they had the broadcast rights. But without a doubt, that was the most entertaining thing I think I've ever seen in an intermission report.
I couldn't agree more. You took the words right out of my mouth. I sat there and I'm pretty sure I live tweeted the broadcast and I was like, give me more Wayne Gretzky, Charles Barkley every Wednesday night. Well, they don't call it Wednesday night rivalry anymore, but just every Wednesday night hockey on TNT. Give me more of that. Like, I hope they plan on keeping Gretzky in there. That shootout was great. Plus, not to mention, like, bringing someone like Charles Barkley in it's good for the game. And Charles Barkley has been a huge, proponent for hockey. He's loved hockey for so long. He calls it out on like the his NBA broadcasts, and he gets made fun of. And it's like, no, like he's amazing. I love Charles Barkley.
I would absolutely love if the NBA on TNT crew did an entire intermission report for hockey, but they completely they have the same interaction. You get with Kenny and Shaq and just having all of that interaction together. I think that would just be so funny to see. And I think one of the great things it does for the league is it brings in that new fan base of, the NBA on TNT. Everybody thinks, Barkley and Shaq and their interactions and messing with each other and whatnot. You bring that type of audience to a hockey game, but you have Charles Barkley there to kind of lead that way and kind of drive some of the conversation there. Also, Barkley chirping Gretzky.
I
Yes,
loved it.
yes.
Oh, I love it.
You lost a fight to a guy with a perm. I love that Gretzky, after saying that he with the fight with Neil Broughton, uh, he said he apologized after the fight because somebody made a comment to Gretzky about how Gretz didn't fight. And Gretz goes over and apologizes to Neil Broughton after the fight. That's the most Canadian thing I've ever heard in my life.
I'm not
Just
surprised.
incredible.
Because Barkley touched on it too. Like, he's the most humble superstar there is in the world, and it's true. I mean,
Without a doubt.
Wayne Gretzky is the GOAT of hockey. He doesn't act like it. He doesn't walk around with these broad shoulders. He's just like, yeah, I was good. I hope Ovi, I loved too how he just kept bringing it back up. He's like, Ovi, please break my record, please. I'm done with it. I want you to break my record, please. And that was the other thing too. Him interviewing Ovi in the post game.
Mm-hmm.
Him interviewing Alex Ovechkin was, to me, must see TV. It was just such a cool. It was like both guys were humble, but both guys were kind of joking around with each other, and it's just fun to see.
There's that mutual level of respect with when you're at
Yes.
the pinnacle of sport. And Gretzky was the face of his generation for hockey, along with Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr. Now with this era of hockey, you've had it Crosby and Ovechkin. They've been, neck and neck with each other in terms of the conversation, the awards that they've been winning, the All-Star games. When you get that sort of cross-generational level of respect, exactly like you're talking about, as a fan, that's so cool to see. And for a casual fan who didn't necessarily know Gretzky or know Ovechkin, and that's not their familiarity with the sport, I think that was a cool thing for them to see as well.
That's the thing too. I think that's what both ESPN and TNT did great, is they kept it to where, like, look, the mega fans like, you or I or HP, I know he's on the show right now, the mega fans like us, we enjoy, and they have the banter that we can understand and enjoy, but they sometimes go to like the regular fan or the new fan. They start to kind of talk a little more general, a little more high level, and they try to teach the game, but in a way that's not educational but fun. Also, not to mention, I have to throw this out there, the way that the TNT crew just became so broy, I get it. I've never played hockey. I've never been in the locker room, but I can understand how it works, and I've seen, videos and everything like that. That, to me, they acted like they're in the locker room together. They're chirping each other. They're joking around with each other. They're holding the hockey sticks. They're just giving each other crap. It just makes for a nice, fun, like, two intermission or intermission broadcast, really.
Yeah, when you have that type of camaraderie and chemistry with each other, it just makes the broadcast so refreshing as a fan to watch.
Exactly.
And I think the NBA had done a really good job of developing that. So to bring Charles Barkley on and have him be the TNT, like he said at the end of the intermission report, welcome to the TNT family, and like welcoming them into that type of fraternity, basically, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of what it was to me. I thought that was really cool to see.
I love the diversity too they threw in there. Not just, I mean, of networks that, like, they grabbed everybody from. So like they brought over like Eddie O, thank God. Eddie O will always be the best analyst out there. No one can tell me otherwise. I will die on that hill. Anyway, I was proud of this one. They brought in Jamal Mayers for Between the Benches, and he was basically all he was ever doing were the Blackhawks games on Comcast, or NBC Sports Chicago, and now he's up on TNT. Like, that's a huge jump for him, and I'm happy for him. But then I love, like, they bring in Anson Carter, who was mostly on the NHL Network, and he's always great to listen to because he obviously knows goaltenders. So, and I like that they brought in Paul Bissonnette. I know, like, I'm a fan of Barstool. I think that was cool. They brought him in. So they brought literally everyone from every different aspect, and it just made for some great banter.
Well, and I loved having, like, some of the people that we've seen on the coverage. Jonesy was a big part of the NBC broadcasts, and now he's Between the Benches.
Yes.
Doing the reports there. I think that's such a great fit for him. Emily Kaplan, I think, was Between the Benches as well. Just doing an awesome job. It was new, it was exciting, and it was fun as a fan to watch all of that.
No, exactly. Also, correction: Anson Carter was not a goaltender, but
No, he was a
I
forward.
know he
I thought
wasn't.
you were
But
talking about somebody else. No,
no.
Anson
I
Carter
know
is
he wasn't.
definitely a forward.
No, but
All right, it is time for our final segment that we already love on this show. 2 minutes for roughing. Last week, Joel, you graced us with a wonderful 2 minute rant on the superiority of New York. No, or let me rephrase that. The superiority of Chicago pizza to New York. I almost said it the other way around, and you immediately caught it. So I apologize for that.
I got a lot of comments after that rant.
Oh, I bet you did. I mean, and it made me hungry, honestly. At the end of the show, I think the first thing I did after that was go make some pizza.
As you should.
All right, so this week I'm going to take care of 2 minutes for roughing, and Joel, I'm going to need you to get that timer
Oh, I
ready
got you.
so I can be watching there. I'm going to take a sip of water first, and then I'm going to have you count it down for me.
Oh, that is fine. You take your time. You are ready to go. I will tell you when. Well, you'll see me hit start, but I'm excited for this one. You gave me a little sneak peek of it. All right.
I did. So, all right, we ready?
Are you hydrated?
Let's do this.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Rough them up, kid.
All right, so for this week's 2 minutes for roughing, we're going to be talking about the Buffalo Sabres and the way that the Sabres have handled the Jack Eichel situation. For those who don't know, Jack Eichel has been dealing with a herniated disc in his neck since last March. He has not been able to go see doctors about it. He's been able to get medical opinions on treatment. He is not able to do physical therapy to recover from this injury. He needs to have surgery to get this corrected. The procedure that Eichel wants to have done is a disc fusion procedure. The team wants him to have a disc replacement procedure. That's exactly what it sounds like. Eichel wants to have two of his neck vertebrae fused together. Sabres want to have it just replaced. Part of the issue there is 10 years down the road, people who have the artificial disc in their neck instead have more medical complications 10 years down the road. For Eichel, who is trying to see where he is at and be able to play 2 years down the road, or excuse me, 10 years down the road,
Yep.
He needs to be healthy. He needs this fusion procedure rather than having a replacement procedure. However, the Sabres aren't letting him do that. Not only that, but Eichel has requested a trade out of Buffalo, and Buffalo has completely tanked his trade value. They withheld medical information from other teams and would not let them look into, okay, where is Eichel actually at? Is he healthy? Is he going to play? If he gets this procedure, what is his timeline for return? They have absolutely and completely butchered this, and they're burning bridges with their current players as well. So other players are going to see Eichel's not the captain anymore because he wants to speak out for his own health. This is ridiculous. It's going to cost the Sabres players. It's going to cost them Eichel. It's a terrible situation. Shame on everyone involved. That is how we do 2 minutes for roughing.
Well done. And I like that, we kept it hockey this week.
We did. And we'll mix it up. Some weeks we'll do hockey, Some weeks we won't. But
I couldn't
I think we needed to bring it back to hockey, and I'm fired up about this. I love Jack Eichel as a player. I want to see him. Yeah. The game needs him to be on the ice, healthy and playing, whether that's in Buffalo, whether that's somewhere else. But Buffalo really needs to get their act together on this because this is just ridiculous that it's taken this long.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's quite frankly crap what they're doing. They're not treating him. They're not treating him like a human being. They're treating him like an asset, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And I, in the business world, I get it, but these guys are human beings. So there's only so much you can do, and it's like I think the doctor or like their medical staff, ownership, management, they need to take a good hard look and stretch those empathy muscles a hell of a lot more than what they're doing, and stop looking at it from a dollars perspective or a asset perspective of what they can get back for him.
Well, and if I'm a player on the Buffalo Sabres and I see this is the situation that the captain is in, and they have stripped him of captaincy. He's not showing up on their roster right now. And they're not letting him get this procedure. And I'm going, I'm a fourth line player who's just trying to make it on this team. If this is how they treat their star players, Reinhart wants out. He's out the door. Ullmark walks in free agency. Taylor Hall, the return on the Taylor Hall trade at the deadline last year was terrible for how immediately Taylor Hall picked up and played as soon as he left Buffalo.
Yep.
I hope that Jack Eichel goes on to have an amazing career wherever he ends up. If he goes to Chicago, I will root for him to succeed in Chicago because he deserves it after what he's gone through with Buffalo in these past, 6-7 seasons that he's been there. It's ridiculous that this is taking this long to figure out.
And to me, point is HP's got a question up here.
At what point does the league step in and do something, or can they even do it? I have heard that there have been conversations with the league about getting Eichel back onto the ice in some way, shape, or form. I don't know what the Players Association, what kind of power they have to do it. I don't know what kind of power the league has to step in. I think you're kind of setting yourself up for a bit of a power struggle here with, do the owners have the power? Does the player have the power? Where does that ultimately fall? That's a really good question on, can they step in and do something? They certainly can, but I don't know to what extent or what that outcome might be.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I mean, too, from the league perspective, too, like, do they take it one step at a time? Do they do a waterfall here where it's like, have these conversations, but he is still like, he's your player, you do what you got to do. But then you got to think of it, when will the league start really stepping into it? Because like you said, the league needs someone like Jack Eichel. Like, outside of Connor McDavid's stardom and Austin Matthews and Leon Draisaitl and still Alex Ovechkin, like, outside of the stars that I can continue to name, Jack Eichel was up there in the top 5, top 8, top 10.
Well, and Eichel went one pick after McDavid.
Exactly, and that was one of the. I know at the time they were kind of torn, but it was pretty clear it was Connor McDavid.
But any other year, Eichel is the number one pick. And if you
Easily.
start looking at like Eichel versus, say, Austin Matthews, Eichel versus Jack Hughes, some of these other Lafreniere, it's still a little too early to say on Lafreniere, but I would rather have Eichel than some of those other guys that have gone in that first overall spot.
Right, and some of those guys, well, mainly who you mentioned, Austin Matthews really is the only one who's become a bona fide superstar. The others they're on their way. Jack Hughes will have a breakout year this year, not just because he torched us, but he's just going to torch the league this year. And it's a foregone conclusion. But I'm with you, and that's why I think, like, maybe if it gets to be too long into the season, maybe we hit that quarter, maybe we get to like 25 games into the season, maybe, and then you see the league start to step in a little bit harder. Again, unfortunately, they're going to look at it from an asset perspective, probably too much too. But at the same time, they'll look at it from Eichel's perspective. They'll look at it from an Eichel perspective too. Like, hey, man, he's great for the league. We need him on the ice. If you guys aren't going to handle this, like, we're going to step in harder and we're going to make you do what you need to do. Because we're losing marketing revenue on this.
Right. That's another thing is money talks, and the money that they're leaving on the table with Eichel is problematic for the team. It's problematic for the league. They've got to get this figured out.
That was a good one. I enjoyed that 2 minutes for roughing.
All right. Well, that is
get out of the box.
That is it for our show tonight. We want to thank everybody who joined us, everybody who commented throughout the show. Thank you to the Sports 2.0 Network and to New Sports for letting us run with this for another week. We're officially 2 episodes up and down. We're officially a podcast now, I would say.
Still feels weird.
A little bit, but you know what?
Bit.
We're off and running. So thank you again to everybody for joining us for tonight's episode of Pod Snipe Celly. We'll hope you'll join us next week. We are going to be moving back to Tuesdays, 8 o'clock. We know we had some confusion about that this week. There was a little bit of change to the schedule, but we will be Tuesdays, 8 o'clock going forward.
I can advertise it. It's because I'm going to the Blackhawks home opener tomorrow. If you follow me on Twitter, I'll be live tweeting.
Good for you.
Hey, it's for this. It's like for the job.
Okay, then I'm expecting a full report, including concession prices, parking. I want all of that. A full detailed report for next week's episode on the Hawks home opener.
I'll have at least 2 beers, but That's all I'll give you.
Fair enough. All right. Well, we are out of time. For Joel Fernino, I'm Dan Bradley. Thank you again so much for joining us. We'll see you at 8 o'clock next Tuesday right here on Sports 2.0 Network.